This is a reconstructed image of a young man who had no name. His identity, a mystery that police believed impossible to solve. That was until 20 years later, when amateur internet sleuths on Reddit finally cracked the case. If you're enjoying this mystery, hit that subscribe button and smash the like. This story will blow your mind. The young man's body was found on June 26, 1995, at a gruesome scene off of US Route 58 West. Tire tracks veering off the highway led to a smoking Vanagon smashed against a pair of large trees. Two dead young men were found partly ejected, hanging out of the windshield, with their faces covered in lacerations. State Trooper Ted Jones arrived on the scene and searched their bodies for identification. The driver had ID. Michael Hager, a 21-year-old student at the University of South Carolina. The other young man in the passenger seat wearing a Grateful Dead t-shirt had no identification and no belongings other than what was in his pockets: 4 quarters, a yellow Bic lighter, and 2 Grateful Dead ticket stubs. Depending on what source you read, a note was also found either in his pocket or in the vicinity that read, "Jason, sorry, we had to go see you around. Call me." It was signed by Carolyn T. and Carolyn O. There was a drawing on it, believed to be of Jerry Garcia, the lead vocalist and guitarist of the Grateful Dead band. And there was a number, but unfortunately, the number had no area code. The number on the note was called probably using local area codes, but it led to a dead end. Michael's family was informed. They were distraught, but they had no idea who the man in the passenger seat was. So Officer Ted Jones concluded that the young man was probably a hitchhiker. When the autopsy was done, there were no drugs in his or Michael's systems, which led Trooper Jones to believe that the driver fell asleep at the wheel. This lined up with how the tracks veered off of the highway so early before the crash. When the unidentified passenger's fingerprints were sent to the FBI database, no matches were found. And combining this with the fact that his face was covered in lacerations meant that identification would be very difficult. But they identified that he was between 15 and 21 years old, with brown eyes, long curly brown, or dark blonde hair dyed reddish. His teeth were well cared for, but there was no extensive dental work done, as he still had his wisdom teeth. Aside from the tie-dyed Grateful Dead t-shirt, he had on beaded and macrame necklaces, light blue Levi's jeans, and black Fila running shoes, size 11.5. His left ear was pierced, but wasn't wearing an earring at the time. They found a scar on his back, a faded tattoo on his right arm, and a homemade star tattoo on his upper left arm. But with nothing else to go on, Ted Jones focused his attention on the 2 Grateful Dead ticket stubs, which were for shows on June 24th and June 25th, the 2 days before the car crash. Both Grateful Dead concerts took place at RFK Stadium, Washington, D.C., about 180 miles north of the crash site, as a part of what ended up being an important tour, as it was 2 months before the band's founder, Jerry Garcia, passed away. They traced who bought the tickets and found it was sold to a man from Pennsylvania who was very much alive and not named Jason. He was a scalper that had bought 20 tickets and resold them. But when State Trooper Ted Jones interviewed him, the Pennsylvania man couldn't recall who he had sold them to. It was yet another dead end. There were plenty of clues, but no identity found on the side of the road. So let's discover where this road leads us and bring him home. Because of this apparent love for the Grateful Dead being one of the only things known about him, at the time, The unidentified man, or John Doe, as they are called, became known within web sleuth communities as the Grateful Doe. A clever pun, if I do say so myself. Since this Grateful Dead fan, or Deadheads as they refer to themselves, was a hitchhiker and bought tickets from a scalper for the 2 shows at RFK Stadium, one might theorize he was following the band on their tour, except he was heading south from the stadium. The next tour location was in Michigan, northwest of the stadium. Well, where was he going then? It's not clear. To visit someone, maybe. They were making a detour. Let's look into the driver, Michael, and see if he can give us any clues. He was with his fiancée in Fairfax County, Virginia, when he left her that morning around 7:45 a.m. After traveling south, he stopped at his father's house in Williamsburg, Virginia at noon. His father wasn't there, so Michael left a phone message saying that he was headed to visit his mother in Inman, South Carolina. But on the way there, he crashed on Highway 58. A neighbor of the father reported having seen a young man with Michael when he stopped at the house during the visit to Williamsburg. This would suggest that our Grateful Doe was picked up somewhere south of Fairfax, not too far from the Grateful Dead concert. It was believed they were both deadheads and likely shared a bond because of that, even though Michael hadn't attended the recent concerts. But according to the investigation from State Trooper Jones, Michael was alone when he visited his father's place. That doesn't make sense. The neighbor said another man was with him. Yes, that's what was reported in a Freelance Star article from 1996, but Jones claims that was incorrect. If that's right, it would mean Grateful Doe actually hitched a ride somewhere between Gloucester and Emporia, much further south. Not liking this Ted Jones guy. I mean, the Grateful Doe went to RFK Stadium for those concerts. Ain't that far from where Michael started. Yes, so wouldn't it make sense that that's about where they met up, not way down south at the end of the trip? Well, our Grateful Doe could have already hitchhiked further down when he met Michael. Regardless of where our Grateful Doe was picked up, the crash happened at around 1:30 p.m. that day, 90 minutes after Michael left his father's place. Okay, so we got a whole timeline now. What? Surveillance footage? DNA sequencing? Super enhanced reflections off of someone's eyeballs? With cases like this, only so much can be done at this point. With all the dead ends, Trooper Jones needed help from the public. They released all of this information, but couldn't release a photo due to the lacerations. Another problem was that some news reported him as a redhead, despite having only red-dyed hair. This lowered the chances of identifying him significantly. Since there was no image of him released to make matters even worse, coverage of the crash was only in the Virginia area, even though it was suspected he might be from out of state. Now, let me guess. Nobody came forward. Exactly. Seriously, this whole thing feels like a bunch of fumbles. Not even a sketch or nothing. A forensic sketch was only released 7 months after the crash, at which time news did report it again. 7 months. Why so long? It's not clear why, and it was only reported in Virginia, right? Yep. Geez, Ted Jones wasn't doing nothing. While there may be some fumbles, he was trying. Trooper Jones sent the description to all the police agencies in the country and received missing persons reports from 15 of them. He also sent the fingerprints to the Secret Service, which had a larger database than the FBI. The case information and sketch were mailed by him to news organizations in hopes of more coverage. But despite the hard work of Jones, nothing came out of those efforts. Jones said in an interview, "I investigated everything from every angle and nothing ever panned out." Okay, maybe I'm being a bit hard on him, but I still feel like there could have been more done here. Well, from Jones's perspective, All he could do now was pass the investigation over to the state medical examiner office in Richmond, Virginia, to compare the young man to missing case reports. And so that's when the case went cold. And the Grateful Doe, whose first name may or may not have been Jason, would go unidentified for years to come. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, because this story takes an incredible turn you won't believe. While the case files and evidence gathered dust in storage, the internet started to become a staple in homes around the world, connecting people like never before. It was a new era with unknown possibilities and noisy modems. In 1999, the true crime community website, Web Sleuths, and a missing persons website, the Doe Network, were launched. But it wouldn't be until the mid-2000s, nearly 10 years after the crash, when this case found a home on the internet. In 2004, a profile page for the Grateful Doe was created on the Doe Network. And in 2005, user trying to ID posted about it on Web Sleuths asking for help. People who were moved by the story investigated and scrutinized all the details from the comfort of their homes. Sounds like your kind of people, bro. They absolutely are. Theories ran rampant. Some questioned if the note was his, and if it actually said Jason on it. They also speculated that he may have been a runaway. Others wondered if his stuff might have been stolen, which would explain why he didn't have any ID on him. User trying to ID took charge of the investigation. A vigilante detective, if you would. They also showed frustration with law enforcement, saying he died over 10 years ago. They do not have time to help this young man. So why not release information to me? Someone that is willing to give any extra time. I have to this young man. Yeah, like if they had the phone number, instead of that blurred out image, a bunch of people could have called tons of area codes. Well, it's likely for privacy reasons. Also, one might assume law enforcement can't just release evidence to any citizen that asks for it. An exception could have been made, though. I mean, the police couldn't solve this case, but maybe these people could. Well, they weren't the only ones to show frustration with law enforcement. A few pointed out some things that Trooper Jones could have done. One user suggested he should have gone to the next show and handed out flyers, but the sketch only came about 7 months later. Other users helped trying to ID. Many took it upon themselves to compare the sketch and descriptions to missing person reports. When they found similarities, they posted their findings on Web Sleuths, and trying to ID contacted the medical examiner in Virginia. But every time they thought they had a match, fingerprints proved otherwise. But one promising theory appeared. There's a group called the Wharf Rats. Hey, that's a pretty cool band name. They weren't a band, but a support group, like AA at the time. It was spawned from the Deadhead culture. They would go to concerts and hold sessions in between sets to help members lead a drug and alcohol-free lifestyle. Oh, okay, that's cool. What's the theory? Grateful Doe was one of them. I'm not sure, but the most prominent founder of the group, the one they called Mom, her name was Carolyn Thomas. Carolyn T from that note. It did sound promising, and a few of the Web Sleuths pointed it out. So trying to ID called her. And unfortunately, she said she wasn't the Carolyn T from the note. But Carolyn Thomas, she's at all the concerts. She gave no reasoning, but the Web Sleuths believed she had no reason to lie. There's lots of Carolyn T's out there after all. These theories are going nowhere. Not a single break. Nothing. For now. Luckily, these Web Sleuths were very persistent. Carolyn Thomas did agree to hand out the information to all the deadheads she knew at the time. At least that's something. Did any of them recognize him? Well, not necessarily, but getting the word out was important. And maybe they knew somebody that knew somebody. Come on, this thing is pointless. Despite the efforts of these amateur detectives, years would pass and hope would fade. But there wasn't anything stopping these communities from trying to solve this case. In 2012, it got another push, this time from the help of the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They posted a new computer-generated image of the Grateful Doe on their website using the autopsy photos as a reference. The recreation was more clear and realistic, but people were quick to note that it looked different from the original sketch. They believed that the trauma to his face attributed to this discrepancy. Regardless of this, users spread the new image around, hoping someone might recognize him. That same year, a Facebook page was set up by users Alyssa and Layla. Like on Web Sleuths, the members put their detective hats on and looked into missing persons reports. But with all the dead ends, they faced more theories ran wild. Some thought that he could have been an abducted child, a foster kid, or someone stole his identity while his family went on believing he was alive. That's why these two communities spent years looking for Grateful Doe's identity, driven by emotions, thinking, what if this had been their child? But despite all the effort, it was hard to hold on to hope. They needed a break in the case. Or perhaps they needed to break the internet. And that's exactly what happened. On New Year's Eve, 2014, nearly 20 years since the crash, in an attempt to get more eyes on the Grateful Doe, a user by the name of Gray Metal put together a collage of all reconstructed images and some of the evidence. Then posted it on Imgur. She wrote a heartfelt first-person post laying out all of the details. Do you recognize me? I have been without my name for nearly 20 years. In June of 1995, I was involved in a fatal car accident in Emporia, Virginia. The driver fell asleep at the wheel. He had his ID on him, but I didn't. And his family do not know who I am. For 20 years, no one has come forward to identify me. I have adopted the identity of the Grateful Doe. Maybe we went to school together, lived next door to one another. Or maybe you saw me around town. Maybe you know of a missing person who fits my identity. Can you help me finish my journey? Immediately it went viral and made the first page of Imgur, which then prompted the creation of a subreddit to help spread the word even more. As a result, 2,000 people joined the Facebook group in a matter of days, tripling their numbers. Around that time, Gray Metal joined up with Web Sleuths, and as commenters started to pour in, she reported her findings to them and asked for their help. That one Imgur post sparked a fire like no other attempt before it. And now 4 big internet communities, Imgur, Reddit, Facebook, and Web Sleuths were working hard to crack the case and get more eyes on it. Yeah, there we go, getting some momentum. Exactly. The Imgur post was exactly what this investigation needed. Leads started to pour in. Before we continue, drop a like and subscribe to stay updated on incredible mysteries like this one. A woman on Craigslist claimed to know the mother of a missing person named Jason, but that Jason turned out to be alive. Meanwhile, 3 other people said the sketches reminded them of a Jason or a Jay who was a Grateful Dead fan. The first lead was on Facebook. Someone claimed to have known a Jason they hung out with in a summer, a year or 2 before the crash in Myrtle Beach. He worked at a shop that sold a lot of Grateful Dead merchandise, but they didn't have more information than that, like a family or other friends. The second lead was on web sleuths. One of the new users came forward to reveal they knew a Jay on tour with the Grateful Dead during the summer of 1995. He was very friendly, even if he was known to interrupt a lot. He stayed at people's homes and got lifts from friends to the other Grateful Dead shows. This Jason had a wallet and a backpack, but again, the second lead didn't provide too much information. But luckily, the third lead, which came from Reddit, was the most promising. A man came forward claiming that he and his two friends were roommates with Jason in 1994 and 1995. They described him as a laid-back surfer dude from Myrtle Beach and a major deadhead always talking about the band. He was 17 to 18 years old and worked at a McDonald's. He left in early 1995 and they lost contact with him. Despite all these promising leads, the problem was none of them remembered his last name after 20 years. But if this was our guy, then we would know that he went by Jay and he was from Myrtle Beach. That ain't nothing. Exactly. Every piece of information is helpful, and the search was picking up steam. And with it, a new theory emerged. He was likely following the Grateful Dead tour, but when he somehow lost his wallet and backpack, be it stolen or forgotten somewhere, he decided to return home to Myrtle Beach, if that was indeed home. Michael, the driver, would have been able to bring Jay part of the way there, as Michael was heading to Inman, South Carolina, only an hour drive from Myrtle Beach. With these leads, the icing on the cake was another one of the roommates submitted some photographs. The Jason from these photos had quiet eyes half shut most of the time, with a bright smile on his face that captured people's hearts. He especially looked like the original Police sketches. But they've been down this road before, with plenty of missing persons that matched the sketches. This may not be the Jason they were looking for. The world is a big place, but this is definitely a good lead. No, absolutely. And the communities believed they were so close to cracking the case. They wanted to know if this Jason was alive and well. So they spread the new photos online, and it turned even more viral. Gray Metal, along with Layla and Alyssa, who ran the Facebook group, worked with the other users to follow up on these three leads and get the word out to Myrtle Beach. Plus, news outlets started to pick it up again. A few days later, a man came across this viral missing person on Facebook and recognized the photos immediately. In shock, he called his mother, Margaretta Evans, and then she posted this in the Facebook group. "Oh my God, this is my son Jason Callahan from Myrtle Beach. I've been looking for him all this time with no luck. Today my other son saw this Facebook page, and after all the years of praying for him to just call me or come home, please inbox a message or phone number to contact me. Holy Mother Mackerel, did we just find his family?" Well, we confirmed that this Jason Callahan was missing, but not dead. Likely the photos from the roommate was of this Jason. However, was this also the same person as the body found? You can never be completely sure until there's something more concrete, like fingerprints or DNA. You don't want to give a family false hope. Man, imagine not knowing where your son is for like 20 years. It's hard. Layla, one of the Facebook group moderators, wanted to approach this carefully though. So first, she reached out and used a lawyer to confirm that this woman was in fact the mother of a Jason Callahan. Next, they would need to do a DNA test, and that could take months. but there was a lingering question on everybody's minds. If the Grateful Doe was Jason Callahan, why had he gone unidentified for so long? Eventually, it was revealed to everyone's surprise that the mother never submitted a missing persons report for him. The hell why? At this moment, it was unclear, but to get the DNA testing done, Margaretta had to officially file that report first. She described him as having wavy blonde hair and brown eyes, 5'10" to 6 feet in height and about 160 pounds. He was 19 at the time he went missing, but strangely she described him as having no marks or known tattoos. But the guy totally had tattoos, correct. But it is possible that he could have gotten them after he left home. Also, it had been 20 years. Memories tend to get fuzzy. The mother then submitted a sample of her DNA. After the communities waited on pins and needles for months, the test finally came back, and it was inconclusive. You got to be kidding me. The problem was that the DNA given by either parent is random. Your DNA is usually comprised of half from your mother and half from your father. But Jason's father unfortunately passed in 2009, never knowing what happened to his son. It's for this reason that acquiring samples from multiple family members of both parents is useful in missing persons cases. So this time from his father's side, 2 half-sisters, a half-brother, and a cousin submitted samples as well. On December 9th, 2015, almost a year after Gray Metal's post on Imgur, and over 20 years after the crash, a post was submitted on the Facebook group. It read, "Update. The news we have been waiting for. The DNA results are back. That our Grateful Doe is in fact Jason Callahan, missing since 1995. I've been sitting here for how long in shock, for both the sadness of his family and the fact that here on Facebook we are making a difference. Because of everyone here, this man will finally make his way home. Layla and Alyssa." It continued. On another note, I want this story to do so much more. I really pray that this story gives an important lesson to reporting your missing loved ones, or even trying to check up on them if you haven't had contact in years. With it was a picture of Jason, reading, "Rest in peace, Jason Callahan." Finally. But so why didn't his mother ever report him missing? All those people looking up missing persons reports. No wonder they never found them. It was useless. That was the lingering question. The internet was divided. She was actually receiving a lot of hate online for that. What I get it, she didn't do things the right way. But leave her alone. She's a grieving mother. But luckily, many also showed support for her, especially on the Facebook group. It turns out the problem was that Margaretta didn't know which jurisdiction to file the report in, since her son was following the Grateful Dead around the country. Jason's half-sister, Shannon Mickelson, said no one ever thought to really file a report because everyone assumed he wanted to be missing. His mother hoped he was living his life married and happy. And this news must have been especially devastating. Likely, yes, but it did give them closure. And even if she wanted to file a report, users on web sleuths were quick to point out that police often don't take missing persons seriously. One user who ran away said, when her mother called the police, they explained that she was 16 and old enough to do as she pleased. Another user stated, "I get very angry when people assume that it is easy to go to the police and that they will automatically agree to take the report." Meanwhile, a user who worked in healthcare said that many parents had sons or daughters who were young adults. and enjoyed a wandering lifestyle who they had just lost contact with. The sons or daughters weren't assumed to be missing or dead. Jason's half-sister Shannon went on to show her gratitude. "I'm so incredibly grateful for all the people who kept searching for his identity. The compassion they have to search for years and years for his identity is something that can't be measured. This is not how I expected to find my brother, yet knowing so many people cared gives me some sort of peace." Meanwhile, Tricia Griffith, the owner of Web Sleuths, said in a Huffington Post article about Jason Callahan that she hoped now law enforcement would start to look at the site as a legitimate resource. In the United States alone, about 600,000 missing people and 4,400 unidentified bodies are reported every year. Luckily, many of the people are found and bodies end up identified, but thousands of cases go cold. The Facebook group and subreddit for Jason Callahan is now dedicated to helping find unidentified persons in general. This just goes to show that the internet doesn't have to be just for TikTok dances and hateful comments. Sometimes, communities can come together for the grateful good. Ignoring the lame pun, you're right. It's great when people come together. This story proves the power of human connection and determination. If you made it this far, hit subscribe and the thumbs up. It would really help us out. Drop a comment below telling us what other unsolved mysteries we should cover next. Your engagement keeps these stories alive and helps bring closure to families still searching for answers.